Step inside the world's most elite art galleries in London, Geneva, or New York. You will see masterpieces hanging in silent, climate-controlled rooms. A Picasso, a Monet, a Rothko. Pieces of canvas worth 30, 40, or $50 million each. The natural assumption is that the art world is a playground of the unimaginably wealthy, and that the people selling these paintings are financial titans. But behind the velvet ropes and the champagne receptions, the fine art market is hiding a terrifying financial secret. It is one of the last unregulated markets on Earth, and the true masters of this universe do not paint the art. They do not even own the art. They use a legal loophole to capture millions of dollars in cash, manipulating the oldest families and the newest billionaires on the planet. Welcome to the pinnacle of wealth transfer. We call it Art Arbitrage. Today on Capital Chronicles, we're going to decode the story of how a 28-year-old art restorer, making an average salary, engineered an $80 million cash float, survived an international police raid, and used the crisis to buy the ultimate asset of the global elite, a tax-free fortress. If you are ready to unlearn the illusions of the luxury market and see how the 1% truly print money, hit that subscribe button right now. Pay close attention, because this is the masterpiece they do not want you to see. Meet Clara. The year was 2020. Clara was 28 years old, working in the basement of a prestigious London gallery as an art restorer. Every day she meticulously repaired the paint on masterpieces. She held millions of dollars in her hands, but she was living paycheck to paycheck. However, Clara was invisible, which meant people spoke freely around her. She discovered a perfect, glaring inefficiency in the global wealth ecosystem. On one side, there was European old money, aristocratic families who owned castles and priceless art, but were secretly running out of liquid cash to pay their massive inheritance taxes. They needed to sell their art, but they refused to go to public auctions like Sotheby's or Christie's, because a public sale would expose their financial desperation to the world. On the other side, there was new money, Silicon Valley billionaires and crypto tycoons. They had hundreds of millions of dollars in liquid cash, but they had no status. They desperately wanted to buy masterpieces to prove they belonged to the elite, and to park their money in assets that the government couldn't easily tax. Clara saw the matrix. She didn't need capital to make millions. She just needed to be the silent bridge between the desperate aristocrat and the eager billionaire. She quit her restoration job and founded a hyper-exclusive, invite-only firm, Eterna Advisory. No public office, no website, just encrypted messages and private jet meetings. Clara leveraged the network she had quietly built. She approached a British lord who needed cash and convinced him to let her privately broker a famous $20 million Monet painting. Then she flew to California and sat down with a newly minted tech billionaire. She showed him a single, high-resolution photograph on a secure tablet. The tech billionaire, desperate for the prestige, agreed to the $20 million price tag immediately. He wired $20 million in cash to Clara's corporate escrow account that same afternoon. Let us pause and look at the table. Clara has $20 million of cold, hard cash in her account. The tech billionaire has the painting. But here is the ultimate glitch in the fine art matrix. Clara did not wire the money to the British lord. In her contract with the seller, she had inserted an industry-standard yet deeply weaponized clause. It stated, "Due to international anti-money laundering regulations, and the mandatory time required for independent provenance verification and carbon dating, all funds shall be held in a clearing account for a period of 120 days prior to final disbursement. The aristocratic lord, terrified of a tax audit and used to the slow pace of the art world, had signed it without hesitation. Clara was now holding $20 million. For 4 entire months, that money was legally hers to control, generating interest, while she owed the seller exactly $20 million on day 120. This is the Escrow Float. Clara didn't stop. She used the immense credibility of handling a $20 million transaction to broker 5 more massive private sales over the next year. She connected Russian oligarchs with American hedge fund managers. She moved Picassos and Rothkos. By the end of 2021, Clara was constantly holding a rolling float of over $80 million in pure cash. She was playing God with the bank accounts of the elite. She used the float to dominate the private advisory market, living a life of absolute luxury, entirely funded by the time delay of her contracts. But extreme leverage is a ticking time bomb, and the art world is built on a very fragile illusion of trust. It was the spring of 2022. Interpol, the International Police Organization, launched a massive coordinated raid across Europe. They had uncovered a highly sophisticated forgery ring. Some of the most trusted art authenticators in the world were arrested. Instantly, the global art market froze. The trust was broken. The tech billionaires who had bought art through Clara panicked. They demanded immediate independent re-verifications of their paintings. More terrifyingly, their lawyers sent Clara demand letters, threatening to reverse the wire transfers and demand their $80 million back, accusing her of potentially brokering forged art. Simultaneously, the 120-day clock was running out for the aristocratic sellers. They wanted their money. Clara was trapped in a financial vice. If the buyers forced a recall of the funds, her float would vanish. She would default on the aristocratic sellers. Eterna Advisory would be annihilated, and Clara would be facing a lifetime in federal prison for international wire fraud. Put yourself in Clara's position right now. The police are raiding the industry. The billionaires are panicking. The aristocrats are demanding payment. You have $80 million of liquid cash in your account, but it doesn't belong to you. How do you survive? Clara did not panic. She looked at the $80 million float and realized that in a crisis, cash is the ultimate weapon. She could not solve the problem by returning the money, because returning the money meant admitting defeat. She had to change the game board entirely. Clara knew about a concept called a Freeport. A Freeport is a massive, ultra-secure, climate-controlled bunker, usually located in Switzerland or Singapore. It is considered an international transit zone. Any art or gold stored inside a Freeport is legally invisible to tax authorities. It is the ultimate safe haven for the ultra-rich. Clara found a privately owned Freeport in Geneva, Switzerland, that was facing massive corporate debt and was quietly begging for a buyout to avoid bankruptcy. Clara didn't hesitate. She took $60 million directly out of her massive cash float, the money belonging to her furious clients, and wired it to Switzerland. She bought the massive, high-security Freeport outright. Within days, Clara transitioned from being a middleman broker to the sole owner of a sovereign tax haven infrastructure. Then she executed a psychological masterstroke. She sent an encrypted emergency briefing to her furious buyers and sellers. She did not apologize. She projected absolute dominance. She wrote, "The global art market is currently compromised by government interference and police audits. To ensure the absolute safety, privacy, and tax-exempt status of your assets, your funds have been aggressively deployed. I have acquired the Geneva Freeport. Your capital has secured your position. As compensation for this delay, you have all been granted lifetime equity in this tax-free fortress. Your art will be stored here, invisible to your governments, forever." The psychological pivot was devastatingly effective. The tech billionaires and the European aristocrats didn't want the cash back. They wanted protection from taxes and government audits. The idea that they now owned a piece of a Swiss Freeport was the ultimate status symbol. It was a billionaire's dream. The lawsuits evaporated. The panic turned into exclusive applause. Clara survived the collapse. She transitioned her business entirely. She no longer brokered art. She simply stored it, charging the elite millions of dollars a year in storage fees. She used their money to buy the vault, and then she charged them rent to use it. This is the hidden architecture of the 1%. They do not view money as a static object. They view it as a flow of energy. The middle class tries to capture the energy. The elite build the dam. Clara started with nothing. She used the prestige of the aristocrats to capture the cash of the billionaires. She stretched the timeline, and when the system cracked, she used the massive pool of cash in the middle to buy a fortress. Stop playing the game by the rules written for the working class. Capital belongs to the architect who knows how to hold it, delay it, and weaponize it. If this psychological breakdown of the escrow float shattered your view of the luxury world, hit the like button right now. Share this documentary with someone who needs to understand that the greatest assets are acquired with other people's money. Subscribe to Capital Chronicles and turn on the bell. Stop admiring the art and start owning the gallery. I will see you at the top.